Let's get started. His primary fire. Quad cannons are a hit scan weapon, meaning they have no travel time, unlike Hanzo, Torbjorn, or Junkrat, or any other projectile hero. The same moment you click your mouse 1, the bullets fire immediately. This weapon does have some fall off, meaning starting from a certain distance. The further you are, the less damage you deal, so your optimal firing distance is close to mid-range, and of course, close range. There are two ways you can reload his weapon. Either in crab mode, I call it crab mode, or in bull mode. I'm not entirely sure the time difference between reload animations, but you don't have to look for it because it's practically the same. I think both is around 2 seconds and doesn't really make any difference in game, so when you are in a fight and you have to reload, pick one of the reload options and stick to it, because you can literally reload forever if you keep on switching between two forms. There is some advantage in reloading in bull form, however, because it allows you to move faster and also it hides your head hitbox, so it's possible to get headshot while in bull mode, and that's why reloading in bull mode is better. You just take less damage and it's easier to dodge bullets. Now let's talk about Grapple. I think it's one of the most fun abilities in the game because it allows you to get very creative with the character. It's your mobility cooldown that allows you to quickly reposition from one place to another. When you attach your grapple and start moving, you enter the fireball state, which allows you to move super fast, boop everyone on your way, and deal 60 damage. There are two ways to move even faster though. The first is jumping. Just like in real life physics, a bouncing ball travels further than a rolling one. So when you're fireballing on the floor, you can spam jump to maintain speed even after exiting fireball mode. That's why I recommend you bind jump additionally to scroll wheel. A lot of people do that. It's a little uncomfortable for me, and also my scroll wheel is broken, so I personally don't do that. The other way to get more speed is retracting. Retract shortens the length of your grapple, and there are multiple ways you can use this ability. One of them is gaining speed. If you retract mid-grappling and moving, you will become much faster, and it's a super cool tech that I use all the time. It can literally throw you from spawn to objective within a few seconds, making Bull one of the fastest heroes in the game. Another way to use retract is to get to a high ground or set up on an unexpected angle, which I will talk about a little later. There's a very important thing that you must know about grapple and retract. When you use your grapple and enter the fireball state, your grapple will be active for the next 6 seconds, then it will deactivate on its own, and you'll have 5 seconds cooldown on your grapple. However, if you don't enter the fireball state, you can stay grappled forever. And if you detach, you will only have to wait 1 second before being able to grapple again. Unless you're being controlled by some kind of stun, then in that case, even if you didn't reach your fireball, you will still get 5 seconds cooldown. And by the way, this is a great way to save yourself from being thrown out of the map.
Sorry.
Oh.
Oh. Oh.
What the hell?
You guys do know I have only 1 second cooldown, right? By default, your retract is bound to jump button when you're grappled, which is quite uncomfortable because you do want to be able to jump while grappled, so I highly recommend switching that button to quick melee. Overwatch has special knockback distance rules, which can be applied not only to Wrecking Ball but some other characters as well. Tanks have boop resistance, so they have the least travel distance. Squishy targets have a pretty decent travel distance, and targets that have increased speed while being booped travel the furthest. Yes, even tanks. This rule can also be applied to Lucio Boop, Junker Queen's Knife, and other knockback abilities. Why do we need to know that? Sometimes you may go for a boop on tank who's close to an edge, exposing yourself to risk and not being able to throw them off the map because of knockback resistance. Or maybe you're booping a Lucio, but he travels so fast that he flies over a pit. Or there are some map places where it's actually easier to boop a tank into the void than a squishy target. Now let's talk about Power Drive. Power Drive is possibly Wrecking Ball's strongest ability, but at the same time, the moment when you use it, you're the most vulnerable. You're locked in an animation for a solid period of time, during which you can't move, shoot, or activate your other abilities. To activate the Power Driver, you have to be a few meters above the ground. This is where your grapple comes in very handy. Whenever you see your Power Driver icon not red, it means that you can slam. If you can't catch the timing to press your pile driver button, instead of trying to spam it, you better just hold the button and you will never skip the frame. The first frame you are able to pile drive, you will pile drive if you hold the button. There's a must-know tech that requires no skill whatsoever, but it's extremely helpful. This is called pile drive off ledge. To perform it, slide or jump off the high ground you're standing on and pile drive. This is very important. Pile driver only launches you forward in the direction where you're looking while activating the ability. Meaning, if you look in the direction opposite the ledge, you won't come back on the ledge. Also remember that Pile Driver is basically another jump in your kit, so with this ability you can retake high grounds even if you're lower than them. Pile Driver deals 100 damage if you land directly onto an enemy. It works kinda like Doomfist ult. If you're further from an enemy, you deal less damage, down to 20 points. But anyone affected by the Pile Driver, no matter how far they are from you, will be launched upward, losing air control for almost a second, making them easy targets for some crit shots. A great tip, if there are not so many counters on the enemy team, you should try to pile drive as often as it's possible. But you have to be very patient with your timings, and probably also force out some abilities like Ash's Coach Gun, for example. If you know that Ash has Coach Gun, don't just pile drive her because she will Coach Gun away. If you'll be accurate enough with your timings, you may even make some great plays like catching Winston or Doomfist mid-jump and making them stuck in your team. Now for the ability that makes Wrecking Ball a tank, Adaptive Shields. It's a temporary overhealth that builds depending on the amount of enemies nearby when you're activating the ability. This little counter shows you how many enemies you have near. The more enemies you have nearby, the more shields you gain. 100 base and plus 100 per enemy. You can reactivate shields again to share them with your teammates, and they will carry them for the next 4 seconds. The catch is, you do waste a little bit amount of shields from your own health pool. However, there is a small tech that I will share right now. So basically, when your shields are about to deactivate, you can come to your teammates, share your shields, and they will keep on carrying your shields for the next 4 seconds, although your shields have already ended. So it's basically just free overhealth for your teammates. It's a cool thing to do when you're diving the enemy backline and then coming back to your team, and you have to chill for a few seconds to get healed up, and that's just a perfect timing to share your shields. Another very nice timing to share your shields is, let's say, you're diving someone on the enemy backline with your teammate, like Tracer or Genji. Then you can activate your shields and share them immediately to give them some overhealth during your dive. And also, just in general, if you see someone in your team being very low, you can just come close to them and share your shields and potentially save them. Adaptive shields, just in general, is a very underrated ability and a lot of people use it wrongly. I swear to God, don't use it as a healing ability when you're low after engaging. Instead, use it when you're inside the enemy team and tank the damage with your shields. I'm gonna stress it, tank the damage, don't heal it. One of the reasons why you want to use your shields first is because they protect your armor. And armor is a very, very, very strong feature of any tank. See this little orange portion of your health? This is your armor. Any damage instance that's higher than 14 will be reduced by 7. Anything that's below 14 will be halved. For example, one hit of Soldier's Rifle deals 19 damage, but with the damage reduction it's only 12. Make it 10 bullets and it's 120 damage taken instead of 190. Arisa's gun deals 13 damage, but it's halved to armor, meaning only 6 damage. Make it 10 bullets and it's only 60 damage instead of 130. And this is broken and absolutely underrated, and a lot of Overwatch players don't understand how armor works just in general. This is what makes most tank heroes so strong and damage spongy. That's why I highly recommend hard engaging only with full HP and adaptive shields off cooldown, because it's very annoying for the enemy team to deal with Wrecking Ball, who barely takes any damage. Also, don't forget that besides armor and overhealth, you have normal shields that regenerate on their own after 3 seconds after not taking any damage, so you self-heal faster than other heroes. Another mistake I see a lot of Wrecking Ball players make is activating shields after pile driving. And this is a very, very huge mistake because, again, it's not a healing ability, it's a tanking ability. You don't want to take a ton of damage to your normal health and then cover it with overhealth. No, you want to tank it. with overhealth. So if you're engaging, your normal combo would be boop, shields, and then pile drive. Not boop, pile drive, and then shields, okay? And last but not least, ultimate. Wrecking Ball poops a minefield and every mine deals 130 damage and boops, which may cause a chain reaction. Minefield used to stick onto walls, but not anymore. However, mines can still stick to certain surfaces that have floor structures. On top of that, the higher you are from the ground, the bigger is the minefield spread. So depending on map structure and your intentions, you can use minefield differently. If you wanna solo ult and kill a squishy target, then you need lesser minefield spread so that the target would bounce off mines and eliminate itself. This is where your retracts comes in very handy. Or pile drive off ledge. As you may have guessed, minefield plus pile drive is a great combo in that particular order. Don't ult after pile driving, cause enemies will have enough time to clear mines before they spawn, or just escape. Or maybe you just want to deny map space, then you may want a bigger minefield spread. This is what you will go for most of the time on higher ranks, cause it takes enemies more time to clear mines if they're not clanked up in one space, and just in general, it's less comfortable to move around the map where there are mines just in random spots. Also, you can use minefield to isolate the enemy tank from their team and kill them together with your teammates. Now let's get to his playstyle. I already mentioned hard engaging. This is where you go into the enemy team, pile drive and stay there and fight. And on the contrary, you can soft engage. It's either shooting, poking, or rolling through enemies. Remember that you're a tank and you don't necessarily have to kill enemies. Distracting them, drawing their attention, and making them waste cooldowns is more than enough. You may be asking why. Well, let me explain. Let's say you're distracting an enemy Ana. She's wasting cooldowns, and instead of sleeping someone on your team and killing them, she wastes her sleep on you. She's wasting her nade to save herself, instead of saving her low HP tank on the front line, for example, or nading your backline. She's shooting you instead of healing her allies or DPSing your backline. She's constantly turning around at you, losing line of sight with your teammates. All of this makes it easier for your team to kill the enemy team because they're not receiving a proper support from their Ana. This is how you kill the enemy tank, by the way. You don't have to kill the tank necessarily. You kill them indirectly by cutting off their support. Unlike DPS or some other tank heroes, Wrecking Ball's time to kill is quite high. So, like a tiger, you gotta play with your victim first before eating them alive. This is the value of Wrecking Ball. Playing with your victims. Well, a few other examples. There's a Widowmaker on the enemy team. What happens if you constantly hunt and shoot her? She doesn't obliterate your backline. On top of that, you're most likely distracting enemy supports as well, because they'll be trying to help Widowmaker survive instead of fighting your backline or supporting their frontline. In this particular clip, my little distraction created enough space for my Juno to land a sick right click onto the entire team and leaving them all low. They have 3 supports and they're all hit, and they are forced to back up. This is actually how you beat a Pharah Mercy comp. Let's say there's a D.Va, Cass, Ana, and Pharah Mercy on the enemy team. What happens if you go after Ana? Cass may turn around to try to help her, D.Va might as well try to force you out, but what's more important is that Mercy will detach from her Pharah to heal Ana, leaving Pharah exposed to your team. And the solo Pharah isn't that invincible as a pocketed Pharah. Yes, it's going to be miserable, yes, it's going to be hard, you will get slapped, naded, hindered, rocketed, matrixed, solo ulted, but first of all, it's worth it, and second of all, skill issue. Don't hard commit against your counter picks and play with your victims first instead of trying to kill them fast. You will embarrass yourself. A lot of people ask me how to play against counter picks, but they always do the same gameplay loop when they boop, pile drive, and shoot. Well, you just gotta soft engage way more. Use way less pile drives, way less shooting probably, and way less using crab mode just in general, and way less going main. Instead, go for just roll throughs, start your engages from unexpected angles. Wrecking Ball is more deadly when an enemy doesn't know where he is. Also, this is what separates a good ball from a bad ball, the time spent in bull mode. It has to be way more than in crab mode, because it makes you more tanky, more annoying, and harder to deal with. Sometimes I may spade an entire fight exclusively in bull mode, because it's just that strong. Previously I said the difference between a soft engage and a hard engage is the fact that you pile drive or not. And I actually kind of lied to you, because you can still pile drive and it will be a soft engage. The actual difference is between staying in the fight to find the kill and not staying in the fight, and the appropriate usage of shields. Shields are way more important than pile drives, and that's a very common mistake for most bow players. A lot of players will pile drive, waste their shields and roll away, taking 0 damage for their shields and making their shields basically absolutely useless. If you want to commit to a fight, then use your shields and fight. Tank stuff with your overhealth. If you're planning to just roll in, roll out, then try your best to not waste your shields for nothing. I actually have a very demonstrative video on that topic with clips from a coaching session. The link is in the top right corner. I highly recommend you to check it out if you want to get in more details with that adaptive shields usage topic. And yes, I coach. You can join my Discord with the link in the description to find more details on that. There's a very common scenario when you just don't know what you should be doing as Wrecking Ball. Well, you can start by analyzing the enemy team comp. Choose the weakest link, preferably support, and hunt them no matter freaking what. Usually the weakest link would also be the least mobile, like Zenyatta for example. If your target is Mercy and you can't kill her, but she's the best target, then I don't care, keep chasing her. I'm telling you, you provide a lot of value when you're making Mercy uncomfortable by making her move around the map a lot, potentially cornering her into dangerous spots. That's also another way of dealing with Pharah Mercy. If you're good with your grapple movement, you can just fly around and hunt them in the air. Pharah would probably even be a better target because she has a more predictable movement pattern. But you really have to commit to your targets. I mentioned it previously that time to kill as Wrecking Ball is very high, so it will take a lot of time to kill a target, but making them uncomfortable by making them move around a lot is worth it. But anyways, back to choosing targets. Wrecking Ball's gameplay comes down to a simple rule called 3 S's: Scout, Setup, Strike, and Reset. Scout is to pick who you're hunting and to see where enemies are coming from. Setup is to choose a good angle to engage from, usually it's a high ground, and strike as well, strike. It's especially good if you're striking with a pile drive if you set up on high ground earlier. Scout and setup can merge together. You can start your engage from the same position from where you scout, but scouting is absolutely essential. Never go in blindly into the enemy team, because you may run into 65 counter picks, and by the way, this is where your third person peek and the infinite grapple will come in very handy. Also, this is why Wrecking Ball is way better on defense than on attack. Anyone who says Wrecking Ball is bad on defense is a pathetic liar and has no idea how Wrecking Ball works, because setting up for a strike is way easier on defense because you have more space and time to work with, while on attack, you step into the dangerous zone of the enemy territory. Just because Hamster has no shield and is a diving character doesn't make him bad on defense. And by the way, I gotta give the credit to Yirl, who is the creator of that 3 S's rule, and on top of that, he was my Wrecking Ball mentor 5 years ago, so I recommend you checking his videos out, although they may be old and not relevant now. You can still learn a lot of things and it's just entertaining to watch. He basically taught me how to play Wrecking Ball back in the days. Notice that I didn't mention dealing with the enemy tank even a single time, because for the most part it's not your responsibility. You counter the enemy tank by cutting off his support from his team. There are a few ways you can help your team deal with the enemy tank directly, but they're quite limited. You can boop the enemy tank deeper into your team, but it requires you first being in the enemy backline anyways, so it's basically a part of your normal dive in, dive out gameplay loop. Or let's say at the beginning of the round you scouted the enemy team's roster and saw Winston there, and if your team is set up on the high ground, you can set up in your backline to boop Winston away when he jumps in. But that's pretty much it. You shoot and you need to avoid tanks because you provide way more direct pressure onto backline than tank, even mathematically. A direct pile driver hit onto a squishy takes away practically 50% of their HP, while a direct hit onto, let's say, Roadhog only takes away about 20%. Go for tanks when you already killed everybody, or the enemy tanks is in a bad position, or if attacking a tank is safer than their backline because they have a ton of counters. Now that I explained his playstyle, we can move on to his perks. So I used to pick pack rat for the most of the time because, as I said, you should spend way more time in the enemy backline rather than fighting tanks. And on top of that, pack rat boosts your survivability very well, and you interact with health packs just way more often than with the enemy tanks, so it's just more effective. However, after being rolled a few times by enemy wrecking balls and rolling enemy tanks into oblivion myself, I can say that I was wrong, and Steamroller is actually very useful, especially if you're good with your grapple. And for the most part, Wrecking Ball usually has no survival issues even without the increased healing perk, so Steamroller is a good pick here. On top of that, Pankrat can become quite useless if enemy DPS go Sombra, because what's the point of increased healing if you can't even receive normal healing? So, Steamroller forever. And to check if I'm right, I asked Harblu, another OG Bull main, to see his opinion on that topic.
But what advice do I have for ballers this season? In terms of perks, I really like using the one perk that makes it so when you roll through the enemy tank, you do a lot more damage with it. Just because there's a lot of times where if you put the grapple like on the cart and just start spinning around it like crazy, you can hit the enemy tank like 3 or 4 times. And if you hit the tank like 3 or 4 times, it does like 400 damage and you can kill him like right there. So I personally really like that perk. And then I also like the perk that makes it so you can control your slam in the air more. Unless the other team has a Sombra. If the other team has like Sombra, that the slam one can be kind of tough. But if they don't, I think the like slam one is so good actually. But you spend more time in the background, wouldn't it be more effective to have the pack rat perk? See, I don't think so, because I normally like with like health regen, like if you're out of the fight and you pick up 1 health pack, you probably also have your health regen going at the same time. And at that point you'll be like full HP regardless. Like it's very rare that like the 100 extra HP from the health pack or whatever, I think like actually makes a difference. Because again, if you're grabbing a health pack, you're probably like already out of the fight for a little bit, so your health regen just pops in. I think pack rat is overkill. Yeah, like I've actually never once taken it. Just because also I don't like staying out for the fight for that long.
For the major perk, I find transfer efficiency completely useless. I tried that perk a few times and I practically haven't felt any difference, seriously. It's quite difficult to find multiple teammates in one place to actually get a good cooldown reduction. Most of the time people will be off-angling, flanking, taking high grounds, so I say not worth it. Hang time though, to my mind, is amazing. It does make you more vulnerable to crowd control, but it's worth it because it's 180 damage with a direct pod driver hit, and on top of that, people don't always expect you to go with that perk, so they can still mess up the timings of their crowd control abilities. If you're afraid to get stunned, you can start your pod drive from high above, making it harder for the enemy team to land their abilities on you. Additional air control will help you aim your slam properly. Now let's get to Wrecking Ball's tags, which I think most of you guys came here for. Starting off with arguably the most important Wrecking Ball tag, U-turn or momentum redirection. If you approach a wall at an angle, upon hitting the wall, you make a slight turn of your camera, your momentum will be redirected, basically bounced from the wall, and then you can carry your momentum, your speed for the next few seconds. A lot of people ask me how I am so fast on ball, and this is one of the secrets. Instead of bumping straight into walls, you can approach them at an angle and make slight turns, and that way your wrecking ball will kind of behave like ping pong ball. One of the most essential tags that you must know as wrecking ball is momentum stopper. It's very easy. Basically, if you just switch from ball mode to crab mode, you will stop immediately. And it's very nice if you're booping someone off the map and you don't want to go with them. Usually you don't, so yeah, use momentum stopper. Another useful way to use momentum stopper is to boop an enemy into your team and then body block their exit. Up next, we have spin to win or blender. The naming is pretty much self-explanatory. You just grapple to an object and start spinning around it. This may be very good for stalling or multi-booping enemies. And by the way, this tag combined with Steamroller can be absolute tank buster. And don't forget that shortening your grapple with reach tag lets you get fireball much faster. Another version of spin to win is chandelier. Basically just attach your grapple to a ceiling and start spinning like crazy. Very nice for stalling. Next up, we have something that I call bounce and boop, and there are 2 ways how you can use this tag. First, you can use horizontal a bounce and boop. That way it's basically you double boop your enemy. The second way to use this tech is go with the vertical bounce and boop, and that way you basically hit a wall by booping an enemy into that, then retract and pile drive. The next tech is called Skyball and it's one of the most useful wrecking ball techs, and I use it all the time. Just grapple to a higher point, hold your retract and let go mid-air. There are many ways this tech can be useful. First of all, bird's eye view is very nice for scouting. Next up, parkour or escape, then shooting before pile driving, and just shooting in the air for fun, trying to battle flying characters. The next tech is called Scooper and it's basically the same as Skyball. The only difference is you hold onto your grapple a little longer. Instead of going up, you go backwards. This tech is very nice if you just wanna roll in, roll out instead of hard engaging, and maybe potentially even booping someone off high ground. The next tech is a little bit more advanced. I personally call it the clock. The point of the clock is to attach to a wall, hit one of its sides, and then quickly go to the other side. It's basically another way of redirecting your momentum. It can be very useful, for example, to go take a health pack and then quickly get back to a fight, or just in general multi-boop enemies. Now let's get to actual multi-boop, starting off with a regular double boop. To perform a double boop, you have to attach your grapple behind your enemy, move straight, reach fireball, then stop, then move again. You basically have to re-proc your fireball. Attention, this technique is not easy to do, and it's very situational. You shouldn't go for it most of the time. It's just fun to know, fun to try sometimes, but don't expect it to be actually useful most of the time. You can also triple boop, but again, it's too much effort for too less effect, so I would recommend not spending your time actually learning it. The next technique is called spider ball. If you release your grapple input fast enough after retracting, you will have enough time and enough momentum to grapple again, and as long as you don't proc your fireball, you can do it forever. And spider ball is a very cool technique for your scouting and setup spots. The next technique is called tightrope, and I would say it's a horizontal version of spider ball. Attach your grapple to the opposite ledge, move forward and jump, and you will slowly approach that opposite ledge. That way you can reach certain places without using your fireball, so you can use your grapple again in a second. However, if you do want to get your fireball to boop someone on the opposite ledge, for example, you can grapple way lower and again move forward and jump, and you will gain your fireball. The next technique is called rebound. To perform rebound, attach a grapple to a wall, fireball into it, and on your way back, detach your grapple to gain fireball again. This tech is quite niche, very situational, and quite hard to pull off because you do have to have a good understanding of the timing, but I just decided to share it with you because why not? There is an easier way to perform a double boop if you perform a drop boop. To perform a drop boop, you have to be set up on the high ground first. Then you gotta fall straight onto your enemy, attach your grapple somewhere in front of you while falling to proc your fireball. Then after you boop your enemy, go forward, re-proc your fireball and boop them again. You don't necessarily have to stand on the high ground now that you have your infinite grapple, because you can attach to a ceiling with your grapple and start from there. Toronto kick. The name for that technique comes from an Overwatch League team because the way how Rankable moves during that technique is very similar to Toronto team's logo. To perform Toronto kick, you have to be close to a wall, move back, attach your grapple up and jump at the same time, and then pile drive. It may be cool looking, but you have to have a nice spacing to perform it. It's just better to use retract for that matter, because the same effect. Silent ball. Basically, just moving in silent ball makes you way quieter than moving in crab mode, because crab mode makes you loud as hell. Besides, if you are falling from a height, you can hold your jump button to make your landing quieter. The hamster will let out a small squeak instead of falling metal pipe sounds. Now finally, let's get to wall jump. Wall jump is one of the most useful wrecking ball techniques because let's say you're off your grapple cooldown, you can still use wall jump to get to a height or to proc your pile drive. To perform wall jump, approach a wall, and as you're about to hit the wall, let go of your W input, press S and jump at the same time. This technique is not easy. It does require a lot of time to master it. However, there is an easier way to perform this tag. If you approach a wall at an angle instead of going straight into it, you just have to jump at a proper timing. Then you can move a little back and you will have enough spacing for your pile drive. This wall jump pile drive technique is way easier if you have the pile driver major perk. On top of that, this technique is also performed way easier if you're approaching a wall that is slightly curved outwards. You can also corner jump, and it's another way easier way to wall jump. Approach a corner, aim at one of the walls, come close to it, jump and press S at the same time. Sometimes you don't even need to press S. Now let's get to the advanced version of wall jump, super jump. Super jump is actually not that difficult as it may look. Basically, you just gotta run at a wall or another structure and get the proper timing of your jump. This tech can be very useful because, let's say, DPS on the high ground, they may not expect you to go up there at all, and boom, you're up there, pile driving them and shooting them to death. And just in general, it's a very nice parkour/escape technique. Do you guys remember those slightly curved outwards walls I mentioned earlier? If you bounce off them, this is much easier. I honestly think those walls are probably the only ones you can super jump off. And also, if there are objects that you can't stand on, they have like this slippery texture and they're near a wall, you can bounce off them too. I have a 23 minutes long video on my YouTube channel where I'm exploring those super jump spots. I highly recommend you to check it out. Now let's get to the last technique for today. People jumping. Basically, if you lose your fireball but you keep your momentum and get the proper timing of your jump, you can wall jump off people and then maybe slam into them. Extra tip: to lose your fireball immediately, you can use your Minefield and then continue with the people jump and pile drive. This is it for today's guide. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. It took me a ton of time and it took me a ton of effort to make this video, and I really hope that at least someone found this video useful. Please let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Also, I want to quickly shout out my Boosty subscribers. Thank you very much for supporting me. I appreciate you very much. Also, special extra thanks to my tier 2 and tier 3 subscribers, I Heart Cats and Lord Smile. Thank you guys very much for your support. I appreciate it. If you want to support this channel, please consider supporting me via Boosty. It's a Patreon alternative, gets you small perks, coaching discounts, early video access, and some more. Currently, I'm running a Boosty goal. If you get to 20 Boosty subscribers, I will learn how to play Doomfist and release my learning process here on YouTube. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch, follow my Discord. Again, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Check out my other videos. I have thought process videos, I have guides, I have coaching sessions, I have a lot of stuff. Please check it out. Thank you again. Bye bye.